Great. Welcome, everyone. Very excited to be here today for the Break Exchange co-hosted webinar between the Break Exchange and the Arch National Respite Network and Resource Center. My name is Kim Whitmore, and I am the current director of the Break Exchange. I am an assistant professor in the College of Nursing at Marquette University, and am joined here today by Jill Kagan, the executive director of Arch, who's going to just share a little bit about Arch. So I'll pass it off to you, Jill.
Thank you so much, Kim. We're always really delighted and excited to co-host these events with the Break Exchange that reaches an international audience. Arch is funded by the Administration for Community Living in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. We are physically, my home office is located here in the Washington, D.C. area. But we are a program of Families and Communities Rising, which is based in Durham, North Carolina. And we provide lots of training and technical assistance to federal grantees, to the General Respite Network. And we also offer information to family caregivers who are looking for respite. And I just want to make a very quick pitch that we're hosting our 2024 National Lifespan Respite Conference in Albany, New York. Co-hosting with the New York State Caregiving and Respite Coalition and the New York State Office for the Aging in May of 2024. And I will post a link to the conference website so you can all read more about it. And everyone is invited and welcome to attend. So, and thank you so much, Kathy, for being here today, and Susan from Family Services in Ontario. We're really excited to learn more about the services you provide.
Great. Thank you so much, Jill. I want to just briefly share a little bit about the Break Exchange for those who may be attending their first co-hosted webinar. The Break Exchange stands for Building Respite Evidence and Knowledge, and we are a fantastic group, international group of researchers, respite providers, agencies, and really anyone who is committed to building a culture of evidence-based respite care. We were founded and led by a great partnership between the Arch National Respite Network, Marquette University, where I work, the International Short Break Association, which I just have to give a quick plug, is having their international conference in Chile in 2025. So we're very excited about that. We just got back from the international conference in Poland in September. And then also the Shared Care Scotland organization. And so grateful for the partnerships that we have in creating the Break Exchange. So there's lots of benefits of joining the Break Exchange. It's totally free. All you need to do is sign up on our email list and you are officially a member of the Break Exchange. We have opportunities to connect with this great global network. We have a monthly networking hour that you can register for to connect with others. And we currently have close to 300 members from 18 countries. So it's a really large, diverse group of people. We have opportunities to learn from and with each other about what's happening in the respite world. So innovative best practice programs, as well as research and emerging evaluation that is helping to build that evidence base of respite. We also want to encourage people to share what they're doing. If you are involved in an innovative respite program or an evaluation project or a research project, please let us know. We want to celebrate that and feature it in our newsletter that goes out every month, on our website, promote it via social media, or you could even host a webinar like we're doing today to share what's happening in your program or research. And then lastly, and I think one of the most exciting things about the Break Exchange is this opportunity to connect and collaborate with each other. So if you're representing a respite program and you think you have a really great program and you want to do more formal evaluation, reach out to us and we can try to help identify a project partner for you. Similarly, if you're a researcher and interested in doing a project with a specific type of respite program, we can help connect you to those individuals. We have the opportunity for members to create a member profile, which is then put into a database that is searchable for members. So you can help see who's out there doing similar work around the world. And of course, we can always help you make those connections. So encourage you to stay connected, join the Break Exchange if you haven't already. We'll post some of this in the chat to make it easier for you, but we're on social media. We have a website and you can always email us for more information. And I always like to encourage people in these webinars that self-care is important for us as well. We preach about the importance of rest and respite for our family caregivers, but we also need to make sure we are practicing what we preach and engaging in our own self-care so that we're giving the world the best of us instead of what's left of us. So I'm going to stop my share and then introduce today's webinar speaker. So again, I echo what Bill shared about being very excited to hear more from Kathy Shanahan and Sue McKee. They're from the Family Respite Services in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And I'll let them do a more formal introduction of themselves and their organization. But thank you again for being here today. We're really excited, and we have just an incredible audience here to listen. This will also be recorded for future viewing for others who may want to learn more about this in the future. And those links will be on the Break Exchange website as well as the Arch website. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Kathy and Sue, and looking forward to hearing more about your program. And we will entertain questions if you want to post those in the chat, or you can save them till the end as well, but I'll be moderating and facilitating any questions that come in through the chat. So thanks again.
It's so great to be here, and wonderful to see how many people have come together today. And I just want to voice my appreciation to both Jill and Kim, and also to Tyler behind the scenes there. I think the Break Exchange just offers such a wonderful opportunity, and it's something that really has offered, as Kim said, wonderful collaboration between countries as well as between professionals. So it's just really great to be here. Help yourself to the delicious snacks that we've provided at the back table, and we'll look forward to telling you about our program. I am Kathy Shanahan. I'm the director at Family Respite Services, and I've been with the program for too many years to count. And I'm joined by Sue McKee, who is our manager of Respite Resources. So we're going to share a little bit about our program and hopefully put it in the context of how services are offered in Ontario. And just for everyone's reference, so Windsor is a city of about 300,000. And our agency supports people in the Windsor area and the communities all in the kind of surrounding county area. And we're located right on the border. We can see the city of Detroit from, not from our office window, but certainly not far from our office window. So we certainly are very interested in what's happening with our partners in the United States as well. So respite care in Ontario, across Canada, is offered differently in each of the provinces and territories. And even in Ontario, it doesn't look the same in every community. So while there's ministry government funding that goes to each community, how it's structured somewhat depends on the history and the interest of agencies to step up and provide certain kinds of services, and the wishes of people in the community. So in Windsor, there was an interesting process that happened back in the late 1980s, where it was driven by families really wanting to bring to attention a theme that has continued on in service delivery in our community with other service areas, and that being that trying to have the access to respite care be as simple and easy for families to access as possible. So the request was that there be a lead agency who would oversee much of the delivery of respite care, short break services in our community. And so out of that, a couple of agencies came together.
Oh,
And we developed an agency called Family Respite Services, Windsor, Essex. So our particular agency supports families who have children up to the age of 18. Most of far and wide, the majority of families that we support have children with developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities. And we also have some children, we're known as a core service provider for children who have mental health disabilities or disorders as well. And we really see respite as a way to strengthen families, but also to enable the children that we support to have a good life in the community. So right now, our agency supports about 1,300 children and their families in our area. And one of the key things that we do is help them to develop a respite plan to enable them to have a short break and caregiver support. So we do that by not only providing some direct resources, but also to link them and assist them to get connected with different kinds of community supports within our province and community. And part of that also is helping them to get linked to have someone be able to, a direct support provider, to actually do that caregiving as well. So one of the ways that we do that is we have a team of, we call them family coordinators, who work with families who develop this range of supports. And right now we have about 10 family coordinators. And then we also have some folks who assist us with recruitment and the screening of those direct support providers as well. We, in addition to our respite programs, those family coordinators, most of them have some other kind of hats that they wear with other kinds of supports that they offer for families. So as an example, one of the programs that we offer is, some of you may be familiar with the course called Powerful Tool for Caregivers. So we have 2 people that are trained facilitators in that, and they're finishing up a group tonight. So we do that group twice a year. And it's really a lovely way for families to get connected to one another and to learn about self-care, but also to really get some practical tools about taking care of themselves. Some of the other kinds of things that we are also doing that I know some of you are involved with, we have a staff who leads our SIB shop process, trying to help families and their the siblings in the family to have that little bit of extra support. And as well, we have people trained in parenting support in a program called Triple P. So we're always kind of trying to look at things that are happening within our community and how support for families with who have children with disabilities, those kinds of supports that would enhance the work that we do and the support that we provide for families. One of the ways that we do that is looking at parent engagement. So we have an active group that has regular way of letting us know about things that both are fun for them, but are ways to connect people with one another. And part of our real, in fact, it's part of our current strategic plan, is to look at how we can do this in a better way and a more active way, and really trying to help families benefit from the lived experience that they have and be able to provide that in ways that are meaningful for them. So, you know, we have some informal activities. They do a walk once a month. They gather for coffee. Tonight they're having a paint night. But also we do that through some more formal, you know, ways to reach out to people, and we're reactivating our newsletter and some things like that to help them kind of connect with the types of information that would be helpful to them. We just our population that we support is a very diverse population. And so one of the things that we're trying to look at is ways that we can reach out with that kind of parent engagement and support to a more diverse group. So last week we had a focus group with our Arabic speaking families and are looking to develop some support for families so that they can connect with one another, you know, and their needs are not only with regard to supporting their family member who has a disability, but in many cases helping support each other through developing citizenship and those kinds of language kinds of focuses that, you know, when we had the focus group, one was offering to go to a doctor's appointment with another, those kinds of things. So we know that those kinds of informal supports are just as valuable as some of the more formal things that we have to offer. So in terms of the kind of more formal programs that we offer, one of the things that we do is we have some funds that are provided directly by the government that we can allocate to develop direct respite supports for families. So we allocate over $670,000 to families for direct respite plans. And we also have out-of-home respite options that I'll talk about in a little bit. So the types of funding, we sort of have different envelopes, recognizing that there are different needs. So we have some funds that are really directed at helping people who want to have direct support in their home, or more often it's a direct support provider that is taking a child out into the community and helping them participate in different kinds of activities. We also have, as I mentioned, out-of-home respite in our respite homes. We have some funding that's specific to children with autism. And then we have some funding through our health ministry for children who have mental health needs. So we help the families develop their respite plans, and we also help them develop a plan with funding that they may receive through other avenues. Some families have funding through a program called Special Services at Home. Some, if they have children with medical needs, have other kinds of funding. So we try to look at that as a kind of global pot that the family might be trying to access to develop a support plan for themselves. So in terms of what families receive, actually some families are fine with, really, I almost think that they regard it as a safety net. So they may only have, you know, $500 for a respite for the year, whereas we have other families who may be receiving, you know, up to maybe about $4,000 a year. And then we have some families who also have what's called complex special needs funding, and they may be receiving many thousands of dollars that we're helping to administer. When families get this funding directly from the ministry, there are certain criteria that they have to follow, obviously, to spend the money. And and so we help them kind of navigate that, which is very confusing for many families. But one of the key areas that people can use their funding for is for respite. So some families choose to manage that money themselves, and we just play a role of helping them navigate that and perhaps find somebody to actually provide the direct support. As I mentioned, families who have children with autism, also can apply for specialized funding. And currently in Ontario, families can also apply for funding for autism supports for more of the therapy kinds of, that kind of support. But unfortunately, the waiting list for that is years long. And so one of the repercussions of that is that families sign up for the autism supports through the government and then know that they're on the waiting list, and they then look to us to help support them while they're waiting. Another one of the programs that is a directly funded program in Ontario is called Special Services at Home. And it is funded directly by the government, and families receive an allocation each year that they can choose to spend in different ways. So in our community, people can choose to take that money and so they would have it an allocation. So let's say that they have an allocation of $2,000 a year. They know that they can spend up to that amount and ask for reimbursement for the things that are covered under that program. Now, during COVID, it used to be that the types of things that program covered were pretty specific. It paid for camp fees, it paid for respite, it paid for, a small amount of things related to, craft materials and things like that to support children. But during COVID, things really became much more flexible with that fund so that families could use it to purchase technology. So we had lots and lots of families buying iPads or things like that with the funds. And they can also use it, let's say they have a child with high needs, they may choose to use the funding for housekeeping or lawn care, which enables them to be able to spend the time with their child. The other thing that they can do is ask for our agency to directly manage that money. So in that case, then we help them administer that money, but we also hire the direct support providers that are going to actually provide the respite or short break services for that family. And so there are employees, and we do all the screening and payroll and all that kind of thing for them. Whereas if they manage it themselves, families have to kind of navigate whether they're an employer or not and most families don't want to get into that whole thing, but they do that on their own.
In addition to the supports that we receive to provide respite and other services to families who have kids with developmental or intellectual disabilities, we have a small amount of resources that have been earmarked for families who have children navigating mental health challenges. That has been set up in a very specific way. So the child needs to be actively receiving service from one of the local children's mental health centers. And that service provider has developed a treatment plan, and part of that treatment plan includes respite supports. They would also indicate what the goals of those respite supports might be. So what often that might look like supporting the child around developing skills with emotional regulation or coping skills, social skill development, etc. So that becomes a very much more specific use of respite supports in this particular situation. It does provide the family member with a break, but again, it's much more focused. It's also time limited, so this is approved in much smaller blocks of time, and that's reviewed approximately every 20 weeks, whether or not that's going to be extended or not, depending on what the Children's Mental Health Center feels is most appropriate. We've, through this program, have developed a team of support providers, so most families get matched with a member of that team, and those team members have some specific training around nonviolent crisis intervention, emotional regulation, and some trauma-informed approaches as well.
So we have a question in the chat that I just think might be timely. Beth Watson asked, if a family manages their own funding, does the funding come directly from the ministry to the family?
It's in most situations, it's a reimbursement program. So the family would make an eligible purchase or utilize some respite hours and then submit invoices and receipts to the ministry and get reimbursed for those expenses, which is not manageable for some families to be able to front that. That creates a hardship. The ministry's timeline for reimbursement can also be a barrier for some families. There's pros and cons to having families administer it or have an agency like ours administer it. So we spend a lot of time talking that through with families so that they can make an informed decision about what is best going to meet their needs.
So as I mentioned, one of the things that we do is to help families, regardless of where their funding comes from, get connected to direct support providers. And I know that my colleague Carolyn's also in the meeting today. And so Carolyn is the chair of our provincial network that facilitates this particular platform that we use called Support Your Way, also known as respiteservices.com. But basically what it's meant to do is to provide a fairly simple way for both direct support providers and families to get matched with one another without them needing to become employees of our agency or go through, fairly cumbersome orientation and training process. And then it means that families have the flexibility about how they're going to use those people, whether they're going to be employees or not, the employees of the family, or whether they're going to ask for them to become employees of ours. So we have a lot of energy go into recruiting people for this support for families. So I think probably our recruitment person, probably makes 1,000 presentations in a year. She's extremely well connected with our college and university in trying to support or trying to recruit people. So then people who are interested in providing direct support register on the site. We help screen that person by making sure that they've got, references to current police clearance, all those kinds of things. And then we also actually interview each candidate who looks like they would be successful in providing this kind of support. And in that process, talk with them about what their availability is, what their skills are, and really kind of make sure that they know exactly what providing direct support is all about. And, give them that kind of information that will help them be successful in what they're doing. So from there, their profile is uploaded to this platform without using their name. And a family can then also register for this site, and the family can see, oh, I see there's a, somebody there has experience with supporting kids with autism, and they're available on Saturday nights, and they know a lot about supporting kids in our community. So then they would contact our agency and say, can you link me, give me the profile and identifying information for that person so that they can follow up with them. So a family can also register themselves, and they create we call it a classified ad, but they're able to put information on the site without identifying their name, that they are a family who has a 10-year-old with autism, and they're looking for help to take their child swimming on a Saturday afternoon. So it means that then the direct support provider can see that is something that is of interest to them, and they can ask for their information to be sent to that family. So it's a way that both people kind of get linked with each other, and it works pretty straightforwardly. We're looking right now at, it's a platform that badly needs to be updated in terms of technology. So we're trying to work with our ministry partners to see whether we can get some funding to update the technology. One of the, certainly one of the gifts of COVID was that everybody's become a lot more savvy about, the technology that they're using. So people have high expectations about being able to use tools like this. So we're hopeful that we're able to update it, but in the meantime, it's really a way for us. We certainly want to do it in a way that's best for families, but we also don't want to be in the position of hiring every person that's going to provide respite support for families, and both being responsible for overseeing those people, but also it allows more funding to go directly to families for families to be able to manage it on their own.
Kathy, quick question from Corey Lutz that I'll then add to. So she asked a little earlier if your organization is one that helps administer the funds, I assume you charge a fee for that, or do you have other funding that supports your role? And then related to that, similarly, like with the help and matching and like getting direct support professionals up, do families have to pay, or do you get reimbursed for the support you provide, or is that something you have separate funding that allows you to do that for everyone for free?
There are no charges for any of this, so it's all part of just kind of our overall, the support that we provide through our agency.
And then a related question, Annie Fletcher, are families able to hire a family member or acquaintance that is familiar with their child's needs? Do they allow paid family caregivers for those roles?
Yes, particularly the special services at home, but even within our own respite funding, people can use a family member. They can't use a spouse. So, Sue, what are the other rules around that? I think they have to be over the age of 18.
Correct. Over the age of 18 cannot be the primary caregiver. But it could be really anyone over the age of 18. We would still, with special services at home, if we're administering it, that person is hired by us. So if a family has someone that they would like to utilize, we would still complete a screening process with that person in order to hire them as an employee of ours. The benefit of that is that we pay that person directly as well, so that the family doesn't have to pay that worker and wait to get reimbursed. So for many families that works well. They also appreciate the extra protections it allows, like should a worker happen to get injured, that sort of thing. Again, it's that pros and cons, but generally speaking, that works well for many families.
And it's it's really key to our philosophy that families choose who their caregiver is. The only kind of program that doesn't work that way with regard to the in-home funding is the mental health funding because we, because we have very specific criteria for administering that funding. So it's one of our staff, and families can't necessarily choose, but obviously we're making sure that it's somebody that the family feels does a good job with their family.
Yeah, two other quick questions here. Who determines the rate of pay? Is it the family or is it the FRS? And then how, are families finding it easy to find providers, which may open a whole conversation?
Yeah. So it's a conversation that happens with a family about the rate of pay. So obviously we have criteria. It can't be below minimum wage. But beyond that, we kind of help families to understand, well, you can, if your child has this level of needs and you want to pay them $15, $15 an hour is below minimum wage now, but you want to pay them $17 an hour, you may not be successful in finding somebody. So trying to be realistic with families about kind of what the market is. So if you need somebody who has a high level of skill, then you need to be realistic about what you're going to have to pay that person. But at the same time, families do have a voice in it because it is technically their money. So they obviously are trying to make that money stretch as far as it can. But we find that generally speaking, families are pretty open to what we suggest. So I would say that the average rate of pay for most of the in-home direct support providers is in the $20 range at the moment. Now, I think, our colleagues in other areas of the province will tell you that it's now moving to the $25 to $30 an hour range. So it really depends on the market.
Say all of us in the US are just like, because our federal minimum wage is $7.25, and that's a huge barrier for our ability to recruit providers, is they're not making $25 an hour.
Yeah, well, our minimum wage is getting close to $16 an hour now. So
yeah, and we'd also received during COVID some additional funding to increase the rates for workers, knowing that the province was recognizing sort of the extra demand and the risk that workers were taking on to continue to provide support. So they had bumped up, providing an extra $3 an hour to try to maintain those workers, because so many were leaving the field as well. And that has become a permanent benefit that's been added to the rate. So that's now something that when we're discussing rates, that's sort of part of that. Families received a slight increase in funding to offset that change in rate as well. So lots of impact through the pandemic that still has carryover today.
So your question with regard to recruitment, certainly we always need people. That being said, we certainly went through a downturn during the COVID time when people were, not applying, but we're certainly back to seeing pretty regular, people are interested. I think what people find attractive about it is that it is, it's a very flexible way to work. You can have another job and still do this. We have a lot of students. I would say the majority of people that are doing this are students in university or college. So it's a way for them to build their experience and build their resume. And we find that lots of them, build that connection with the child, and they continue on even after they, take on a full-time job. So it's been good. Certainly we do get lots of applications from people that, aren't particularly well suited, and we try to steer them in a different direction, but it's pretty regular.
Great. And then Beth just asked a clarifying question. So just to confirm, the rate of pay for employees, is that negotiated with the family too for when you hire them?
Yes,
Great, thank you.
within certain criteria, obviously.
So with all of our respite supports, we're often framing the respite around meeting the needs of the family and giving caregivers a break, but very much also around what is going to be meaningful for that child and youth, and how can we use that support as an opportunity to further connect kids to community and to develop sort of those natural relationships that we all want to have as part of our lives. So another part of the service that we provide in order to increase the opportunity for kids and community is some out-of-home respite. So we have partnered with several municipalities in order to provide some additional support so that kids can participate in typical summer day camps and other recreation programs within Windsor and Essex County. So we have about 7 recreation centers that we partner with during the summer so that kids can attend camp with some extra support. And then during the school year, we have programs with recreation centers that provide a Friday night for teens where they get together and have pizza and do activities with other teens from the community, and a Saturday program for school-aged kids as well. So these are very integrated programs. They're open to anyone in the community. Families pay the registration fee for that program, and we provide the extra staffing that provides the support in collaboration with the city staff who might be running those programs. With regards to the registration fee, families can use, depending on which type of funding they might have, they have the opportunity to use some of their funding to pay registration fees, or they likely might be eligible for a very reduced registration fee depending on family income.
And we're just in the process of working with the municipality about developing some supports for a couple of after-school programs as well. As I mentioned, we also have out-of-home respite, and we do that at 2 homes that we operate. And part of the process in Ontario is that if you offer out-of-home respite, it is, and if you have more than, I think it's 3 children or more coming together at the same time, it has to be licensed through the ministry. So it's extremely regulated, everything from, you know, the actual physical environment through to even the menu and prescribing how children know about their rights, and you know, every little detail is very, very much regulated. So we run 2 of these homes. One is one that we just recently had the big fundraising capital campaign and built a new home, and we I'll show you a few pictures of it, but we opened that home last July, and we use that home quite flexibly. We mostly the kids within the core program use it for a program called Weekend with Friends. So they come in for a weekend periodically. But then we also have some children whose families prefer that they not sleep overnight, so they're coming in primarily just for the day. We also use it after school for some very specialized supports for kids with very high needs that receive some funding through other kinds of mechanisms. So the actual structure of the home is kind of unique in that we're able to, it's a 4,400 square foot house. It's a beautiful house, fits in very nicely in the neighborhood. but it's actually able to be sectioned off so that on one side there are 2 bedrooms and a big living room and bathroom, and on the other side there are 3 bedrooms, living room, and bathroom, and then down the middle there is laundry room, staff room, and kitchen. So they can be locked and separate from each other. They can be wide open. So it allows us to kind of look at the needs of the kids that are coming in for the weekend or after schools. We know we have some kids that really need very protected, safe space. So we might be able to keep them, on one side and have, a group of kids in on the other side. It allows for kind of more diversity if you want to have a girls group or a boys group. And then there's a huge lower level that allows us to be able to, play games and have hockey sticks and, those kinds of things, so that during bad weather, we can be pretty active with the kids. And then in the backyard, we have a big play feature, including water feature. And so it really is an incredible resource. So we're very thankful to our board that they really saw this as a need, and we were able to raise the funds. In some ways, it was we did the fundraising and building of this during COVID, but it really, I think, gave the community a good news story to build on during a time that felt pretty difficult for people. So we were very, very thankful that our community came together to build this.
Sorry, Kathy, I just wanted to add to that because I think it was such a nice, such an important part of the development, and that this was done co-designed really with families and with the kids who use the program. So kids were very vocal in what they wanted to see within the environment and space and in the backyard, and that resulted in some changes. So some of the older teens were talking about having workout equipment and a variety of other things. So modifications were made to the plans in order to ensure that we were incorporating some of their ideas as well.
Yeah, and the staff were very involved in kind of saying what would enable them to provide good support as well. So yeah, that was really important. We used a facilitator to help us do that. The other home that we operate, we do in collaboration with our child welfare agency. So that enabled us to expand our respite network. And they had need for somebody who had trained staff to provide support for children who were in the care of the child welfare agency who had disabilities. So they didn't want to be in the direct, staffing business to be able to do that. So we have 3 children that are in the care of the Children's Aid who live in that home. And then we have space for 2 other kids to come in periodically for respite time. So there's about 10 children that rotate in and out of that home for respite, in addition to the kids that live there. And over the last year, we have a young person who was being supported in our community who has very, very kind of specialized needs. And so we actually developed, we did some building within that home and created his own little suite. So he has his own kind of private area that the support works better for him. And and then the kids come in for respite, and it's a very active home. So that's a picture of the house.
So one of the benefits of the new home is that it's allowed us to be more creative with how some support is provided to children and families. And it has the flexibility that Kathy was speaking about with regards to the physical space, has allowed us to offer some more specialized care for some kids who have kind of higher or more complex needs. So currently our capacity is approximately 10 to 12 children. So these hours would be purchased. They're not funded support. So families could use other funding that they may have access to purchase these support hours that take place within the home. And our kind of very experienced staff would be providing the support. For some of those kids, that support is provided after school, and the home might just be a kind of a home base, and they would then be off doing activities within the community. For others, that support might take place within the home, just depending on sort of what's going to be best for that child and what's going to be most successful. Our goal is always to try to transition those supports into more typical kind of community or home-based services.
So over the last year, this is just a little snapshot of kind of the supports that we provided. So about 50,000 hours of direct respite support, and then another 6,400 hours of support in our community recreation programs. 48 children used that home that you saw pictures of, and another 10 children used the Spago home. And then in terms of those special services at home contracts that we managed, that we managed 423 contracts and provided about 8,300 hours of support through that mechanism as well. I just wanted to highlight sort of a unique thing that's happened within the province of Ontario called coordinated service planning. We certainly, the government heard from families that they, particularly children who have very complex needs, and are experiencing challenges either between, the service system and education or health and social services or kinds of different systems coming together. They wanted access to someone being able to help them coordinate the supports that they need. And so a formal process happened where each community looked at how that would unfold in each community. And in our area, the local hospital oversees this, but our agency has a very direct role in also being involved with this coordinated service planning. So in some situations, we are taking the direct lead in doing this coordinated service planning, which means bringing together other people and developing one support plan for the family. In other times, we are called the case manager. So somebody else is the lead for the coordinated service plan, but we manage kind of being able to, get information out to people. In doing this, we really are trying to help those families who have the most challenging needs in our community. So it's become, I think in Windsor, there's probably, I think they said there's around 100 families who are receiving this support, and we're involved in every one of those situations.
A number of years ago, we took some time and spoke to families about other ways that we could be supporting them sort of outside of typical or the traditional respite supports or short breaks. And one of the messages that came across loud and clear was around transition planning from child and youth services to adult. So in the province of Ontario, it's very siloed. So the families have to almost reapply for adult services, even though they've been receiving child and youth services for a number of years. So we have taken an active role to try to assist families to understand what this process is going to look like, both from a practical sense. So we would help them to complete whatever applications and processes that need to occur. We'll help them through that process. We'll meet with Developmental Services Ontario, which is kind of the gatekeeper to adult services and supports. So we'll facilitate that process in any way that we can. However, we also work really hard to try to encourage families to think about life for their family member outside of services and supports, knowing that that is never going to meet all of their needs. So we had developed a series of workshops that we start inviting families to, often when they're very young teens, that talks about some of those practical pieces so they know what to expect, but also shares a lot of information about other ideas and things like circles of support and how to develop life in community, and really wanting to have families think about, in the meantime, what are some of the things that they have control of, and knowing that there are some things that they're not going to have control of. There is also a website that was created to provide information around this to families in a different way. One of the things we know is that families need access to lots of really good, clear information in lots of different ways. So we've, the groups, the transition website, we've created some short videos that families can utilize, some written resources, etc. Just a variety of ways to help families sort of understand the information in a way and in a time that works for them.
I just want to interject just for a quick time check. I know we interrupted with lots of great questions. So for those who do have a hard stop at 1, I just want to pause to say thank you for being here. Please watch the rest of it on the recording. But if it's okay with you, if you have time, Kathy and Sue, we'll just keep going. And then if you have time to stay for questions, we still have a lot of questions in the chat. So lots of engagement around today's topic. Is that all right with you guys? Great. Okay. So again, if you gotta go, thank you for coming. Please catch us on the recording. And for those who can stay, we'll just keep going and answer the questions that are remaining after we're done. Thanks.
One of the things that we have developed, knowing that self-care looks different for every family that we support, and with the real encouragement and information that we received through the International Short Break, was developing a Respitality program. So some of you may have heard about Respitality through the international group, but certainly is something that we learn mostly from our partners in Scotland. But it's an intersection of respite and hospitality, and it's really a lovely way for the community to indicate their support for families and for family caregivers. So we've been working at this for the last year, and we were fortunate to receive a couple of grants from local businesses to kick off the process, and are continuing on to try to develop this further. So Respitality, of course, is a way to focus on self-care and really to help people, find an experience that's going to meet their needs, and to do that within our own community. And so we, over the last year, have been really looking at ways to do this, and partnered with our hospitality industry. You can give the next slide there, Sue. So the kinds of things that we've been able to connect up with businesses have been enabled us to allow families to have access to hotel stays, or an opportunity to go to a salon or a dinner out, stay at a bed and breakfast, coupons for some local community activities. And we're also just in the process of developing some activity kits for families. So we try to allocate this kind of opportunity for about 5 or 6 families per month. As an example, the families who are just kind of finishing up with the tools, powerful tools for caregivers, will all be offered, an experience through the Respitality, just as a way for us to kind of say, yes, this is what we've been talking about. Here's an opportunity for you to take care of yourself. So we're really trying to get feedback from families about the kinds of things that, would be a benefit to them. And certainly the most requested are, of course, the hotel stays and the dinner out. So we all know that even buying a pizza these days seems to cost a fortune. So it's just been a really nice thing to add on. And particularly at a time where we're feeling that there's a lot more demand for respite than we necessarily have the resources for, but also really trying to promote that it's okay to ask for help. And really trying to open that dialogue with families, because it's not just about, some families don't necessarily want a caregiver coming into their home. So really trying to open the dialogue about taking care of yourself. So just wrapping up, I know certainly what we've talked about seems like it's an incredible spectrum of supports, but there certainly are challenges along the way. One of the things that we identified within our over the last few years is that really trying to be more culturally aware and helping families who are newcomers navigate our system, which is confusing at best, is something that we really wanted to do. So we've been working with translators to help us do that, but really looking at how we can engage those newcomer families in a different way to help them figure out what's going to be best for their families. Of course, there's never enough money. I think that could be our mantra. I'm sure everybody that's on this call would say the same thing. So we know that the families are just completely overwhelmed. We in our community have virtually no there is no way for a family to ask for out-of-home placement, or somebody else to care for their child. So they must figure out how to do it for themselves. And for some families, that is, very, very challenging if their child has, particularly families who have children with very, very high medical or behavioral challenges. So really, it's a frustration for us as an agency, but it's a very big frustration for families. So we certainly do a lot of fundraising to try to be creative in the ways that we're supporting families. Some of these supports that we've developed started initially as things that we did fundraising for, and just, they weren't necessarily within our ministry money, but we were able to say, okay, let's just, sidestep the bureaucracy and figure out a way to get a staff into a recreation center, as an example. And in doing so, we kind of built our relationships and figured out ways to do that. So it's certainly, a time that's very difficult for families, and we are, committed to trying to figure out ways to step up to the challenge.
Sorry, thought it would play automatically.
All families, regardless of whether you have a child with a disability or not, rely on networks of people that help you parent your child. Sometimes it's a grandparent, sometimes it's a friend, And sometimes because of the needs of your child, you just need somebody that's got a little bit different skill or a little bit different availability. It's really a sign that you're wanting to make sure that you have the best for your child and the best for your family.
Kent was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when he was about 2.5. He's 7 now. Family Respite was basically there from the very beginning. It was such a relief to know that there are people that you don't have to explain and tell them about what to expect with the disorder, because they're very knowledgeable. We would meet our respite worker in the morning here with his little brother Tate also was attending camp, and he was very excited to meet his respite worker, and they had a very good relationship after the few weeks that he was here. I wouldn't be able to put him in camp without support, only because his weaknesses are the social interaction with the other kids. He would likely have gone and played on his own and not really interacted with the other kids. And again, they understand how to get to him because they're knowledgeable with the disorder.
Many instances where I've seen that child smile because they've never experienced what they're experiencing before, or, smile because they've had an amazing time that they've never maybe even had the opportunity to ever engage in before. Our supports that are the out-of-home respite are designed to give parents more of a full break. So they're getting, maybe an entire weekend where they can really, do something that they enjoy or have some time to themselves. So it feels a little bit more refreshing and that much more of a break. But we're also ensuring that that weekend is a weekend away that's a fun weekend for them too.
The interesting thing about this work is that sometimes people come to us really looking for, sometimes it's career experience, that kind of thing. They're going to be teachers, they're going to be nurses. And what we hear from workers is that what they get back from the children that they work with and the families that they work with permanently shapes how they view the world. And it's really just such a wonderful thing to watch those relationships develop.
At that age, they're wanting to connect and meet friends. Their interests, their needs, their wants, feeling like they're actually a part of something at their age that they're willingly wanting to do and be a part of.
When we decided to have children, we wanted to have a number of children, and Stephanie was the first. Stephanie was never able to speak, still is not able to speak. She has some developmental delay and some high myopia, so low vision. I was not to the point where I could have let anybody from outside come in and help me, and I think I was probably more scared to allow someone to come in and help us.
You're inviting somebody that you don't know into your home, and you're thinking, we should be able to do this ourselves, and this is yet one more person that's coming in to assess Stephanie, and you think you can do everything yourself, but maybe you can't.
Corbin somehow elicits this amazing reception when Stephanie sees her come to the door. She knows that Corbin gets her involved at the park and takes her for walks, and it's not just about learning fine or gross motor. It's about getting out in the community with Corbin, and Stephanie really enjoys that.
Our goal is to work with families to develop a plan that is flexible and that meets the type of respite or the type of care that they want for their child and their families.
Why not let this organization have an opportunity to help you? Having a special needs child is extremely time consuming, and you want to make sure that you're able to share your time with the rest of the family as well.
Trust Family Respite, that they will help make life a little bit easier, even if you can't imagine it.
So that just provides a good kind of overview of sort of our work with families and kids within the community, and sort of our approach to really ensuring that things are directed and by the families around what's going to be most meaningful for them.
Great.
So-
Thank you guys so much for your presentation. If you do, I know we're way over, but if you're able and willing to stick around for a few questions, again, if people have to step off because they need to go somewhere, that's okay. But just first want to give a big thank you for the excellent presentation and all the work that you're doing to support families. It's incredible to see all the programs that you have. If you want to stop your screen share, then we can all see each other a little bit for the Q&A. I'll try to catch the questions that I saw in the chat first. So Nicole Crump asked, are you willing to share any of your recruitment materials? I'm working on recruiting students for various health profession programs at her university. And so if you want to just speak to that, if that's something you could, they could connect with you on.
Yes, and we have a person on staff that specifically does that recruitment. So you could send me an email and I'll connect the two of you together.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Jill Kagan asked, is government funding sufficient to cover your substantial staffing and administrative needs, or do you rely on private fundraising for service delivery as well? So what's sort of your funding model?
So we do work within our government funding for our staffing. That being said, one of the big frustrations is that the funding within the developmental services sector has not increased in many years. So there is a campaign that is going on in Ontario to lobby for increased resources for developmental services, particularly because it has impacted on being able to adequately address staffing and salary needs within our staff. So, you know, our board of directors has been trying to, you know, be able to deal with that in various ways. We've moved to a flexible work model. We've, you know, provided some one-time, you know, dollars for staff through, you know, various, you know, using our private funds. But we try not to use private funds for ongoing staffing needs, just wanting to keep things be sustainable.
Great. And then a question from Jonathan Cotter. Did you model your home against another existing Canadian or other home model, like Canuck Place, for instance? And do you know how many home programs exist now in Canada?
I have no idea how many homes there are in Canada, and each community does it very differently. So we're quite unique in our community to offer programs in the way we do in most communities. There are other organizations called community living organizations who offer a range of supports for adults and children, and they would be the host for out-of-home respite. And they are primarily in the business of doing residential supports, but in our community, that was divested to us. So no, we didn't in particular model it after another organization. We, as Sue said, we worked with our staff and the families and you know, our own experience over the years to figure out what the design of the home should look like.
Great, thank you. And then lots of great positive comments and shout outs about Respitality, and thanks, Jill, for posting a link to the Scotland Respitality program. So if you want to learn more about Respitality, lots of great comments on how wonderful it is. A question from Cheryl, do you have a wait list for your services, and if so, how long?
So one of the conscious decisions we made, it's a yes and a no. So that one of the conscious decisions we made quite a number of years ago was not to engage in a wait list for the program overall. In-house, we have a wait list for our for the out-of-home respite program. But we try to work with the families coming in the door to say, right now we have funds, or right now we don't have funds, and we don't necessarily put them on a waiting list, because our experience was that in a number of years ago when we had a waiting list was that people were referring to get on the waiting list. And it was really counterproductive to have people waiting. And then it's like, where am I on the waiting list? And you're trying to be sensitive to people that have an urgent need versus somebody that feels like they've been waiting forever. And so we try to stay in the moment about what we have available and what we don't. And then to let families know that we're here for them to call. And certainly for families who are in crisis to be able to access some of our fundraising dollars to assist those families in the short term.
We also, with those families who we might not be able to offer dollars to, look at other ways that we might be able to offer some support to them. So that might include some of the community center programs or linking them with other families, a variety of ways just to help provide some support when there aren't dollars available to assign to a particular family.
Great. Lots of great comments and gratitude from attendees. I just have a question about evaluation. So you shared some insights into sort of the number of hours provided and families served, but do you have any evaluation plan or structure that looks at caregiver outcomes?
So we are actually in the process of trying to figure out what we're going to do in a more systematic way. So we probably should talk with you, Kim, about that.
Yeah.
The children's mental health system uses a particular model of assessment, but don't find that they get a lot of actual engagement with families actually completing the evaluation. So I'll follow up with you about that.
Yeah, great. I just posted in the link the new Measuring the Values of Respite framework that the Committee for Advancement of Respite Research published on the ARCH website, and will be a great conversation starter for trying to structure some evaluation around that new model. So looking forward to that conversation. But we are way over time. Again, appreciate your time so much. And if you wouldn't mind just popping your contact information in the chat, that way if people do want to reach directly out to you, they can. Of course, people can always reach out to the Break Exchange and we can help connect you to Kathy and Sue as well. But thank you again for your time today. Thank you for all the attendees and the great engagement and questions you have. I'll pass it off to Jill just to have a final thanks and goodbye from ARCH.
Yeah, again, thank you so much, Kathy and Susan, for a really incredible presentation. It exceeded my expectations and generated a whole lot of additional questions with follow-up, especially about how did you get to the success that you've had with each of these programs. We're increasingly starting to look at, well, thank you so much for presenting all these wonderful things that you do. How did you achieve them? How did you get started? Who were your partners? What was your original funding source? What was the inspiration? So we're going to be back in touch with you to maybe help us identify the step-by-step success stories that will really be beneficial to our network.
Great.
So thank you again so much. It was wonderful.
Thank you. It's wonderful to spend the time with everyone.
Wonderful. And again, please, if you're not connected to the Break Exchange and you're not familiar with ARCH, take a look at some of the links we posted, and we hope to see you back on another webinar soon. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.